from Midweek Live. My name is Adam Burton, and I have the privilege of serving as the pastor of Central Baptist Church. We are in Maysville, Kentucky. Thanks for tuning in tonight. And if you would, please do me a favor and like and share this video. Let's get the word out about what God is doing here at Central Baptist. Before we get into the topic at hand tonight, just a couple of programming notes. Tomorrow night at 8 o'clock is Through the Word, my weekly online Bible study. That'll be live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all of the usual socials. And then Sunday morning at 10:45, if you are in Maysville, we would love for you to come to worship with us in person. If not, you can take part in church online, again, and all of our normal platforms on our website, cbcmaysville.com, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We even go Instagram for church online. And then another kind of a personal thing, but I think you would enjoy this, is right now I have the also serving as president of the Limestone Ministerial Association, which encompasses Maysville, but all of Mason County and the surrounding counties. We have a very good group of ministers and community leaders that are a part of this organization. And every Thanksgiving, we do a Thanksgiving service. And in years past, that's always been in person. But because of COVID-19, we are in the midst of kind of in the red zone right now. We decided to make that a virtual service. And so that's going to be next Thursday, November the 19th at 7 o'clock on the Limestone Ministerial Association's page. So please go, if you haven't yet, go and like that page. It's go to facebook.com/LMA Maysville. And there you'll see the event, and you can go ahead and say that you're interested and get notified when we go live with it. But tonight, just kind of some thoughts that I have surrounding today being Veterans Day, and also kind of continue on where with the election and the aftermath from that, as well as where do we go as the church from here. And I'm hoping, hopefully next week we'll be able to get Dad back on. I know you enjoy our conversations and his wisdom and experience, and so we'll probably chat about some of these same things and get our different perspectives on them. But God has just been really meditating, or I've been meditating this. God's just been speaking to me through, in part today being Veterans Day. And first, I'd just like to say thank you to all of those who have sacrificially served in our armed forces in the United States to protect us, to defend us, to protect what this country stands for, but as well as to do good in the world. And, America has had that responsibility, that role to go into places where other nations would not, to seek to do good. And I'm grateful for those that have served. I personally did not serve in the military, but I have family members. Both my grandfathers had served, and my brother served in the Army. And so I've got many friends that are either veterans or currently active duty. And, thank you is the least that we can say. And I'm drinking, I got some keto coffee. I don't know if first time I've had this, but it's from my Keurig that I have. Got it at Walmart. It's kind of a caramel macchiato. It's got some butter, and it's a triglycerides in there. I don't know. I assume that's good and healthy for you, but it tastes very good. I mentioned this past Sunday in my message, and if you're watching on Church Online, you'll see it this coming week, about how that I believe that God's hand was on the founding of our nation. And I didn't get a lot of time to go into it because that wasn't really the focus of the message. But I want to kind of nuance that and unpack that a little more because just in some conversations that I've had since then, as I believe that God's hand was on the founding of our nation. Now, some would say that we are in a Christian nation, that we are ordained by God, and I'm not going to go that far to say that. We don't know to the extent with which the founders were Christians or not, how deeply they held those beliefs. Obviously, we do see the Judeo-Christian values intertwined throughout the founding documents. But I would say that I believe God's hand is on this nation, not so much because of us, of who we are, of what we seek to do, but really in spite of us. And so, many of the founders were slave owners. We look at the Constitution. While it is an amazing document, and I don't think that a document like that could be drafted today. But even with that, it did not protect those of African Americans. No, it said they're 3/5 of a person. They were property. And so many of the founders were slave owners, and that was extremely sinful. Still dealing with that even today, some hundreds of years later. We had the Civil War, which really should have divided this nation, but it held on, maybe barely, but it held on, and thankfully. At least on paper, slavery was abolished with the 13th Amendment being ratified into the Constitution. But even through then, we have great struggles throughout the ages. And so we can see at so many junctures in our nation's history where this American experiment should have failed. But it has continued on, and so we don't say that America is a great nation to the detriment of others in an egotistical way. But I do believe that God has been with us through this, and yes, we need to lament the sins of our past. We need to repent from them. We need to learn from them, and we need to pursue righteousness, justice for all, and we need to do that. But at the same time, we also, as a believer, believe in that people can change. And, one of those instances I've done some studying on Benjamin Franklin, who was a slave owner. But by the end of his life, he was an abolitionist. And to see how one could come to, yes, their views were wrong, go against Scripture, and whether he was a believer or not. But to see how he came to realize what was wrong and seeked to repent, to change from that. And the other day, I was asked by somebody, "How do you handle politics in the church?" And it was an interesting question, and one that really need to give a lot of thought to. And as a pastor, as a Christian, as a citizen, you wear different roles that intersect into at the same time. And before going into ministry, my undergraduate was in political science. It is an interest of mine. I study it quite a bit, and I'm kind of attuned to what is going on. But at the same time, my first calling is to the Lord and to His church. And I think kind of the question was, from the pulpit and preaching, do you preach toward affirming a candidate or a political party, or staying away from one or the other? And I don't know if I have the perfect answer for this, but I believe when a pastor steps up into the pulpit to preach, he is not speaking as a person, Adam Burton, though I intertwine its let's see, one theologian put it this way: it is truth through personality, I believe is how it goes, is that basically we're preaching the Bible. And what does the Bible say? Now, the Bible does speak to government, to politics, to how we are to be citizens. And so, yes, we need to address those. But I think we need to be very, very careful in seeing that everything that we do aligns to a certain political philosophy or particular candidate, or endorsing a certain candidate, or speaking against another one. And what I find now more than ever is that there are things that I can affirm and disagree with in both parties, and that kind of leaves you in no man's land right now. But at the same time, as a student of politics, as a citizen, I think there are times where you can speak more to the political nature outside of the pulpit, but even then, we need to be careful, as all of us as Christians, to understand that how we speak, what we say, not only reflects on us, but also our faith and ultimately on Jesus. And so we are a week removed from a very contentious election. In some ways, things are becoming more final. In other ways, there's some loose ends that still are out there. It does seem, based on the results of the election, most news outlets have given the presidency based on the Electoral College to Joe Biden, and so it looks like he is going to be the next president of the United States. Now, obviously, there is some contesting of some of the election and ballots that are out there, and we'll let that go through the court process. But I've worked in elections for better of a decade, and just kind of on the recounting and all of that stuff, and also as a believer in Christ, is that do I believe that there is corruption? Do I believe that fraud takes place in elections? Yes, absolutely. And I mean, we've seen it in history, and just knowing the depravity of man, yes, I believe that happens. Now, from what I've seen personally, those that I've worked with are of the utmost integrity, unless it's been hidden. I have not seen that. Now, and that's why we have great penalties for election fraud. We also have a recourse for that. But we're also a nation with which one has to prove that we don't just take conspiracies, and also recognizing the areas with which the challenges are being made. Most of the time, I can't say with absolutes here, but most of the time, a recount or change or voiding ballots is not, in this case, likely to shift the election from Joe Biden to Donald Trump. And so I do. I mean, I'm pretty confident that as this works out through the legal system, and I think President Trump has every right to seek recourse as long as there is evidence, and he can show that. And so we'll see how that plays out. But looks like we're going to have President Biden and Vice President Harris. Now, as I mentioned, last week, and I think as I've had more time to process, to think through this, is that there is no one that received a mandate, and where we're at right now within the government is it's very divided. Right? We have a president, a Democrat president. It looks like we're going to have a Republican-controlled Senate. Now, Obviously, there's two runoffs that are going to take place down in Georgia. And again, just kind of, with dealing with politics, and Georgia is unique because if you don't get 50% of the vote, there is a runoff election later. Now, we know that there all four of them are strong candidates based on what I've read and seen, and also just knowing political history is that the turnout's not going to be near like it was in November or earlier this month, and at the same time we're going to see tons of money placed into these national money placed into this election, and most of the prognosticators are going to say that typically in these cases that the incumbent candidate would win, and both of those would be the establishment, the Republican candidate. But we're also going to have a Democratic House, so the Congress is split as well as the president, and so we see that nobody really has a mandate to do whatever they want to do, and that we talk about not getting a lot of things done, and I think there's going to be some. A lot of stonewalling. There's going to be some grandstanding with that, but I would say that in this case, that may not be always the worst thing, and so because we see this checks and balances, and we'll see that the parties, those in leadership, are going to have to not just appeal to their own tribe. We'll talk about the tribe later here, but they're going to have to work across the aisle and seek what is the best for the entire country, not just my particular philosophy. But we also see that we're in a divided nation. We're talking just very razor thin margins on both on the. As far as those who voted on the popular vote, one way or the other, and there is not one that is, I think, dominant view in the country. And we see here that in this election that we had the highest two vote totals in history. Right? Joe Biden got the greatest popular vote in the history, but Donald Trump was right behind him. So it shows that the turnout was great. Both parties, both campaigns were able to get their tribe, their group out to vote. But we see that we are very divided, and I think it is a deep division, and it's just interesting because we're more connected than ever, but we're more divided than ever. And just what I've noticed over the last, probably decade or so is that we tend to kind of live in our silos, and which is odd because we have the ability to access more information than ever. We can connect with people in more countries, more parts of our country than ever, but we don't really see that happening. What it seems is that the more exposed that we are to others, the more we dislike them, and the more we want to retreat back within our tribe, and so we find that we're engaging only with people and things and information that we agree with, that view the world like ours, that see everything the way that we do. I mean, I'm not telling you. There is no objective news anymore. We've got, the conservatives watch Fox News and the liberals watch MSNBC, and there's no crossover. If you accidentally get on the other, all you do is just yell at those hosts. And in parts, that's what we want, but also that's what we're fed. Right? And now even, news anchors don't even pretend to give objective news. And we see that with social media, too, is that, the algorithms that are created are designed to put things in our face, things that we want to see, things that we are going to click on. And so where everything is curated, not so much what is best for us, but rather what is going to give advertisers and the media companies more money. And another thing that I've noticed over the, especially this election cycle, is that people are far more complicated than the media seeks, and even that campaigns and political parties try to divide. things are more nuanced than just a Republican or a Democrat. We see, honestly, probably one of the greatest dividing of this election was location, geography. Where one lived. If you were to look at the electoral map, almost most of the counties are going to be red. Donald Trump won them. And then you look in certain states and you'll see a few blue dots smothered through there, but those are the urban centers. That's where most of the people live. And so there is a divide in rural and urban. And we also seen a divide between blue collar and white collar, working class and the more kind of elite class. But now what's interesting with that is that used to the Democratic Party was the blue collar working man's party, whereas the Republican tended to be more white collar. We're seeing a shift in that. I don't know if that's just because of Donald Trump or will we see this long term. But another interesting thing to see, just to kind of keep our eye on in the future, is how do the unions play with that? Because they are tend to be very deeply rooted into the Democratic Party. But if their constituents, those that are part of them, are voting red, we going to begin to see some changing in that? I don't know, but it'll be something interesting to look at. We also see in dealing with race, right? Now with gender, right? It's interesting is that Donald Trump, actually African American men increased his vote, but yet we know that African Americans a lot of times will vote Democratic, and we also see that with throwing the Hispanics, we thought that was going to be greatly Democratic, but we're seeing that a lot of them voted for Trump. But we can't just group people into that, because especially dealing with Hispanics. You've got the Cubans and Mexicans and Dominicans and all of those different, and they all think differently. They view things differently, and so just to lump everybody into one or two groups, it doesn't work anymore. And so we see that people are more complicated than we want to think. And just an example is, and how we all have view and see the COVID pandemic. For example, an older person, right? For them, what is most important is their health, especially if they have underlying conditions that would make them susceptible, right? And understand that, because it's life and death with them, all right? And if they were to get it, there's a possibility they're going to be severely ill or, in extreme cases, in worst case, pass away. And so their health is most important to them. Whereas a person that is in working age and that is in an industry that is greatly affected by the shutdown from the pandemic, right? You know what? They're maybe not so much worried about the sickness, the long-term effects of COVID health-wise, but they're concerned about their job. Are they going to get laid off and fired? So how does that affect them? And then we have others, families with children that, and a lot of times they're, more concerned about their child's education, keeping things safe so they can go to school. And each one of these groups of people see this pandemic differently. And the challenge, and where I can see the parallelism between this and politics, is that we think that our way is not only the right way, but it's the other ways are wrong, and your other ways of thinking are detrimental to me. So an older person, a younger person, and in work says we don't need to shut down because I'm going to lose my job, and they're saying yes, but I'm going to die if I get this virus. So we need to shut down. We don't need any, and so they're thinking your view seeks to do harm to me, and I don't think that's the case. It's just we all view things a little differently. One is not necessarily better than the other. Now, views can be better or worse. They're not all equal. If you watch my message, you'll hear that. But is we all view things a little differently. And so we say, it's similar in politics, right? A person that is, kind of a low income, and just struggling to provide for their family, maybe they're more concerned about social programs and ways for them to be able to survive. Then a successful business person is more concerned about tax policy to help them to keep the money that they've earned. Whereas an older person may be more concerned with Medicare. And so each one of these, what's most important to them is different than others, and they're all important. And where we're at now is that if you don't think that this is most important, then you're doing harm to me. And I think we just need to take a deep breath and realize that that's not always the case. And from a political standpoint, and I see it even more so in society, even within our churches, is that we're now in this point of building tribes. And so no longer what is best for the country, doing what's best for the country. We're building a bigger tribe and a more active tribe than the other side. So in the case of what we see in the presidential election is we want our people to get out and vote. We don't want the other side to get out and vote so that we might win. It's all about building our tribe. And so the danger with that is that we're going to cater to them. We need to figure out ways to motivate them to see this. And so every election that you hear, this is the most important election in the history. All right, it's got grave consequences for us and a nation. And I've heard this every election since I have been born. And believe the election that is in front of us is the most important election. We can't do anything about the elections in the past. We can't do anything substantial right now for elections in the future. The one that is in front of us is most important. But we have to have a crisis. And that's what it is. And so we sensationalize things, and because, again, knowing the depravity of our hearts, we exaggerate things, and in bad case, flat out lies. And how many times in this past election, all right, we've both sides are accusing one or the other of illegal, basically, lying actions, and it's tough to discern what is true or not, because we, as just the common man, don't have access to the truth all of the time. And so lastly, what does this mean for the church and the implications for the church? And I've kind of seen how these different conversations I've had over the last month or so have kind of just been trying to see how to connect them together. And I had a person not too long ago find out that I was, the president of our ministerial association, the LMA. And they knew I was a Baptist minister, and they just assumed that my church was more of a moderate Baptist church. And I was like, no, we're pretty conservative. I'm fairly conservative myself. And the reason that he assumed that we were a moderate church, or that I was a moderate Baptist, is because many conservative Baptists don't like to step over the aisle, so to speak, to engage with those that are outside their tribe. And we see this even within Baptist circles. There are some Baptists that won't cooperate with other Baptists because they don't fit into their narrow views on things. Now, I believe firmly that we need to have stand firm in what we believe is true. And but we also need to realize that not everything is of most importance. The Bible tells us of what is most important, and so I can understand why he would assume that. But I always like to say is that the LMA is a very diverse group. It may be as far as a I guess civic religious group. I don't know what you'd exactly call it in our community, but we may be the most diverse in Maysville. All right, we have Catholics and Anglican, a Baptist, Presbyterian, Methodist, and many other denominations and no denominations. We have those that are African American and white, and men and women that are all a part of it. And so with the challenge is with diversity, there is many different views on things. And look, I have very deeply held biblical convictions. I believe in Baptist doctrine. I am a Baptist pastor. I've grown up my whole life in the Baptist church. I'm not Baptist because of heritage. I'm Baptist because in my understanding of the Scriptures, I believe that those views line up with that. But the thing is, my Methodist friends and Catholic and Anglican friends, they believe similarly in their faith. And so, look, I'm not going to become a Catholic priest or a Methodist minister, nor do I expect the others to become Baptists. And I think within the context of our group, within a church, yes, you need to be in agreement, as the Bible says, of one mind, like-minded in doctrine, in how you live. But even with that, you're going to have differences based on some of these other groups that we've talked about. But as we kind of branch out from that, we can realize in an ecumenical group like this that we need to understand what is the purpose, right? And look, the LMA is not a church. It's not a city community church. We don't have a lot of church services. No, we have a community service. Twice we do a Good Friday and a Thanksgiving service. But mainly, it's just a group of ministers that we gather together to encourage each other in the faith, and we care for the spiritual needs of our community. And so, yes, we are in unity in the major tenets of the faith, those that would define as a Christian, but we at the same time are comfortable with the differences that we also have. And so some helpful points that I think that have helped me and hopefully will help you is first is to know what you believe and stand firm in that belief. Now, that's first and most important in the Scriptures, in your faith, is you need to know what you believe and stand firm in that belief. But that also applies to your worldview. And I believe as Christians that our worldview should be shaped by the Bible. All right, so we cannot glorify things that the Bible goes against. Okay, and so. Know what you believe, and then that even goes down to you need to examine political philosophies and certain policies and see does this align up with all of these other things and not just based on who is the popular person or what the media tells you to view. The second is to be charitable, and this is really lacking across the board. Don't always think the worst of others. Now, there are some just based on history and time, they've given you no way to think of them other than just expecting the worst. But just because you disagree with somebody does not make them your enemy. And that's politics teaches that, is that if you're not with us, you're against us. And that's not true. We just have different ways of viewing things. And I think helpful for me, that just in engaging with people that are different than me, is to understand why they think and believe the way they do. Now, does not mean that you're going to agree with it, that you're going to come over to their sides, and sometimes that may be true. But I think it's helpful to understand their reasoning for what they value and why they value it. And then, lastly, under being charitable would be that life isn't all about winning. Politics is all about winning. I was listening to a political consultant the other day, a Republican, and somebody asked him, what does the Republican Party stand for today, post-election? And he said, used to be kind of small government, fiscally conservative, balancing the budget, trying to get rid of the debt. And basically he just said is look, that doesn't work anymore. And like, people that are concerned for the debt, and I'm not getting into that discussion here, but he said you can't win. Talking about trying to get rid of the debt, because the Democrats aren't going to run on that. And basically, they're going to say that you're trying to take away the social programs from those, and you're going to lose. And look, Donald Trump did not run as a fiscally conservative. And so what that does, though, is it changes. It's what do I need to do? What do I need to say in order to win? And life is not all about winning. That's especially true in marriage and life in church and how we engage with others. It's not all about winning. It's about living. 3 is be friends with those that you disagree with. And again, as I said earlier, just because you disagree, it doesn't make them an enemy. Right? If you look and everybody that's in your circle is looks the same, talks the same, votes the same, then maybe you need to expand your horizons. I think the same is true in our churches. Right, so many churches are very segregated, not just based on race, although that's true as well, but we're very, much in the same. And I think some diversity is good. And then lastly is to think critically. We definitely don't teach this in school much anymore, and sadly, we as a society don't apply it either much. But is to realize that just because you hear something, and especially that in the media, even more so what you see on social media, don't automatically believe it. All right, think critically. Now that doesn't mean, again, I always said don't think the worst of others. No, that means that you analyze it, that you test it, and so you think critically. Don't take it everything as gospel, and then also read outside of your tribe. So and engage outside of the tribe. So you know what? If you only again watch Fox News or MSNBC. Personally, I watch less and less news than I ever have, but there are, look for credible sources and read those. If you're talking about people that's always talking about conspiracies and this, and they always have anonymous sources and no ever facts to back things up, thinking critically means you really need to question those. But when you find some of the that good balance, and then what you do is you identify the differences, those that differ with your core values, with your core beliefs. But at the same time, you also look at those similarities. And I have a feeling that for most of the country, as divided as we are, I think we're going to find that many of us, there are far more similarities than there are differences. And I really think that is what's needed in these days is to, one, we need to know what we believe. And I believe as a Christian, what we believe is what the Bible says. All right, but at the same time, give charity to those who may differ, disagree, and we need to make a convincing case why our belief may be the best or the correct belief, and then at the same time, look for areas where you can unite. Look for areas where you are in agreement, and let's build on those. Well, that is what I got for tonight. I hope you found it beneficial. Look, I say this, this is not as Adam preaching, thus says the Lord. This is just me as a believer, as even as a minister, as someone who loves the Lord with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength, but also loves our nation deeply and loves my brother as well. Just trying to process through this. So I'm definitely open to hear other views and be challenged. And I think keeping the discussion going in these cases, I think is very good. Well, don't forget, everything that is coming up Thursday, tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time is Through the Word, my online Bible study. Sunday is Church Online at 10:45, and then again, next Thursday, November 19th, is our community Thanksgiving service. We're going all virtual this year, but it's going to be a special service. So hope you have a great week. Again, I'd love to hear from you. You can shoot us a message. You can email me, adam@adamburton.net. Well, God bless and have a great week.